Welcome to SteamPour, a channel devoted to the love of coffee and tea. Let's face it, the demands of modern society create insane amounts of stress in our lives, yet do not allow much of an outlet for that stress. Tea made from the sunny, delicate blossoms of the linden tree offers great relief to stress, anxiety, and even the dreaded cold. There is nothing worse than those spinning thoughts anxiety brings. Luckily, taking 15 minutes out of your day to brew a warm floral cup of tea is a great reminder that everything is going to be okay and you can handle this. Let's look at how Linden Blossom Tea can come to the rescue, soothing the worries away and making you feel more able to tackle the hard stuff in your life. Linden trees, also called limeflower trees, are sturdy, expansive trees found mostly in Europe. They are from the Tilia genus, shared interestingly enough by the Rose of Sharon and durian trees. Lindens typically live a few hundred years, but several across the world are more than 1,000. That is why often lindens on protected property will have fences around them, to show they are to be treated with respect. Get your teapot ready to brew yourself a well-earned pot of tea and wrap yourself in your comfiest blanket as we discuss the fascinating folklore of this tea, followed by a quick look at the wellness properties that make linden tea so good for both the mind and the body. This tea can be made from the dried flowers, leaves, and bark of a linden tree. When buying, check for species name Tiliol or Tilia. First, boil 8 ounces of water and then let the water sit for 30 seconds to 1 minute so that it is not boiling water, just very hot. In my case, I am preparing 16 ounces of water or 2 cups so that I may make enough tea for 2 people. Now you'll want to use 2 grams of tea leaves per 8 ounces of water. Do not measure by teaspoon or tablespoon as the leaves and flowers can be bulky. For this tea, it is best to measure by weight. If you do not have a food scale, then a good pinch of leaves will come to about 2 grams. You can eyeball about this much tea. I went ahead and added 2 more ounces for a total of 4 so that I can make that extra cup of tea. Now just pack the leaves and buds into your infuser. Shoot for a 15-minute steeping time. You don't need to worry about over-steeping with this particular tea. As we wait for the tea to steep, let's snuggle deeper into our cozy blanket and travel to old rural Europe and hear about some of the folklore and wives' tales associated with linden trees. There is a vast amount of folklore and tradition centering around linden trees, stemming from Slavic regions in Western and Central Europe, namely Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia. Linden trees were thought to offer protection from demons, bad luck, and dark magic. The twigs were burned to create protective smoke. Clean water was not as readily available in those days as it is in our day. Fortunately, people figured out that linden trees could be planted near water wells or springs to purify the water. Nobles who owned large enough estates would plant an alleyway of linden leading up to the home to grant safe journey and comeback for family and guests, cleansing them and protecting them on their way out into the world or on returning to the haven of home. Imagine how grand it must have been to visit an old European nobleman's estate, passing through a quiet, whispering tunnel of tall, sturdy lindens that smelled of sweet nectar when in blossom. In addition to its protective and cleansing properties, many Slavic cultures believe the tree to symbolize rebirth and family love. In fact, in rural Poland, it was customary to take marriage vows underneath an old linden tree. The majority of old churches in this region had at least one linden planted to represent finding peace and protection in God through nature. To this day, you may find old linden trees with holes in the trunks for shrines and Holy Mother figurines. Some villages would place a Holy Mother in the trunk to help a woman in labor. The wood of the linden, one that does not have a shrine placed in it, would then have been used to make a cradle to give the newborn peaceful sleep and to keep away evil. As birth and death are so often linked, Coffins were also made from linden wood to ward off demons and give the loved one peace in death. All over Europe, it was customary for the nobility to have a mass planting of linden after great victories and peace treaties, to symbolize peace and upright honesty. Today, many of these trees are still standing, and you can go see them in various regions of Europe and hear about which king or queen or duke planted them after which event. Knowing how valuable these trees were, it is no surprise to learn that in old rural Poland, there were laws decreeing that cutting down a linden tree was an inexcusable felony, which warranted a death sentence. After hearing about how revered this tree is in European culture, I bet you can't wait to get back to your own pot of tea to taste it. Simply pour it from your pot into your favorite mug. Now, let's let ourselves be transported right into the old country folklore as we take our first sip of our lovingly crafted brew. Of course, tasting always begins with scent. It's really subtle, but I can smell aromatic floral scents that remind me of chamomile tea or a field of dry grass. I think it tastes mildly green, slightly astringent. That would be the natural presence of those tannins. It's floral and a little woody with some drowsy notes of warmed honey and pollen. Now I see why this tea is so calming. And speaking of honey, what better to sweeten our tea with than some linden blossom honey? The gorgeous, delicate flowers growing on the linden tree yield a rich honey that makes the perfect companion to the tea. Unfortunately, I looked everywhere for this honey, and the few that I did find were around $30 a jar, so I'll be using more accessible honey. For future videos, as my subscribers grow, I'll be able to afford more fun stuff for this channel, and we can all benefit. So like this video so that others can see it too. And tell your friends to come subscribe to the tea parties. While you're at it, hit the notification bell so you're never late to tea. Now, let's take a taste now that we have sweetened our tea. Ah, yes, subtly sweet, yet still allowing for that delicate, calming linden flavor to come through. Of course, there are some dietary reasons linden blossom tea is so calming. For centuries, linden tea was a known treatment for quelling hysteria, or in modern terms, alleviating anxiety. In olden times in France, this tea was prescribed as a way to calm hyperactive children. The amino acids found in linden actually mimic the effects of the neurotransmitter GABA, which regulates the nervous system. Even to this day, it can be used alongside other substances to treat epilepsy. If you watched the last video on the herbal exploration of mint, you may remember the discussion on vasodilation. As a quick reminder, if something is a vasodilator, it means that it causes your blood vessels to expand or dilate, reducing blood pressure. This is true of the leaves and flowers of the mighty linden, offering yet another reason why linden is known to soothe anxiety. At the time of this video, autumn is in full swing. As the season gilds the leaves of the linden a bright, cheerful yellow, the accompanying cold weather leads us to turn to the linden tree to seek yet another one of its gifts, its ability to alleviate cold symptoms. Those amino acids we mentioned earlier are also responsible for strengthening your immune system. Linden's demulcent and antispasmodic properties work to ease symptoms of the common cold, flu, and bronchitis. Drink this tea to reduce phlegm and coughing so that you can get back to frolicking in piles of leaves. As colder weather can sometimes usher in chapped, irritated skin, those with eczema will be happy to know linden tea can soothe that as well. Eczema is thought to be a result of an overactive immune system, causing your skin to behave like a drama queen and produce too much inflammation in an attempt to solve its problems. Because linden helps the immune system, it can help keep that response under control. It also doesn't hurt that linden is known to possess great anti-inflammatory qualities. As we finish off that last drop of our Linden Blossom Tea, let's conclude with the last verse of On the Linden Tree by the Polish Renaissance-era poet Jan Kochanowski. And without effort, with whispers that come from my deep, I shall be singing all visitors sweetly to sleep. Though in Hesperides' garden none of the apples I bear, as the most giving of trees, my Lord has planted me there. I hope you can find peace and stillness amidst the stress and chaos of life. And in those times you can't, I hope you always have a warm cup of Linden Blossom Tea, lightly sweetened with honey, ready to soothe your worries away. Thank you for sipping with me today. To celebrate the best of autumn vibes, next week I invite you to don a knit hat and go backyard camping with me instead of the usual tea party, as we brew a robust, outdoorsy campfire coffee. As always, you can hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to RSVP so that you don't miss even a moment of cozy fall time cheer. See you next time on SteamPour.